Hi, I'm Delit, and I love to cross stitch. It gives me such peace and comfort. And I am going to share with you one of my cross stitch books, The Best of Paula Vaughan. I have a few patterns by her in addition to this book, but I thought we'd start off with this book. You can see that I got it for a good price of just $9 instead of the $24.95 that it normally sold for. Paula Vaughan, if you're not familiar with her, is an artist. So she paints pictures, and then they made cross-stitch designs from the pictures. So they have a kind of an elegance to them, her designs. This is book 2. Leisure Arts usually does her books. They do a really nice job. They have full color charts. I don't color in my charts as I stitch, but I understand that there are people who do, so they don't necessarily like the full color charts. Not that you can't still use like a highlighter or something. You can mark it off if you are dead set and determined, I guess. This was published in 1998. Has a table of contents. You can see there's several designs. And you can maybe tell from the titles that her paintings represent a kind of nostalgia for a time that is past. That you can see a lot of like the Victorian era in her paintings. She's inspired by a lot of different things, including like quilts. There's a lot of quilts, lots of flowers in her designs, and houses. And so here she is. This is Paula. They have a nice little introductory section where they talk to her. It says, when Paula Vaughan speaks, her genuine laugh unveils a truly warm-hearted spirit. And I think as you look through at these patterns, you will see they are very warm-hearted and bring out that part of us that's warm-hearted or wants to feel a warm heart. Here she is painting. Now, someone else creates the cross-stitch design. She creates the painting. She says here at the end of it all, no matter what happens with her life, Paula will always make art an important part. She says emphatically, I will never stop painting. Never, never, never. It doesn't matter if I ever sell anything or not. I will never quit painting. We certainly hope not, Paula. Especially those of us who like to cross-stitch the pictures that come from your paintings. And I start off with Good Neighbors. This is quite an elaborate thing to cross stitch. So I just wanted you to be able to see some of the details, the shadows in the painting that helps make it feel even better than it would otherwise. You have your village scene. The ladies are dressed in a way that reflects the past. You have a quilt here that someone's been working on, and flowers, lots of flowers, well tended in this garden. You can see they've been freshly picked over here. And it's just a very idyllic sort of scene as well. Kind of a big undertaking to cross stitch, might take a while. A lot of you can cross stitch a lot of this on Aida. The patterns give the recommendations for different sizes of Aida, but a lot of their samples, you'll see, are stitched on linen. if there's any section that's stitched over one, that's easier to do on linen. Also, stitching on linen makes it feel a little finer, fancier. And her pictures naturally kind of have that feeling to them. I've already picked out the one that I want to start stitching, which I'll do on this video. I didn't take you through that whole process. Went ahead and looked through and picked it out. So let's see. We looked at Good Neighbors. The next one is Delicate Beauties. Just want you to be able to see details. Here you see a pieced quilt that is being worked on, and a vase, and even just the vase, a vase of flowers, even just the vase is quite pretty. She has details, lovely details in here for you to stitch, like old-fashioned wallpapers and things. This one is called Forgotten Basket, and this is the design I decided I wanted to stitch. Now, the other cross-stitch designs are a little fancier, but I didn't grow up someplace fancy. So a barbed wire fence reminds me of home more so than a fence, a different kind of fence. As nice as the other kind are, we wouldn't have had the metal bucket. We would have had a plastic bucket, and we wouldn't have had a pretty basket. It would have been a plastic bucket. But I liked her design, and I love irises and daffodils, and that reminds me of home a lot. It's also smaller, so I'm more likely to finish it. This one would especially look just fine on Ada. In this case, it's probably as much about me not having lots of white Ada around, but I do have this piece of 32 count linen. So it will turn out, excuse me, it's actually kind of late at night. I had half finished this video and I needed to go help someone. And so I'm starting over. I'm a little tired. But I really wanted to do this. Anyhow, and I actually was looking for the floss. I start in the middle. I just always have, and so I still do. I like doing it that way also. So, and this pattern lends itself well to starting in the middle instead of a corner. As you see, there's not a whole lot in the corners or on the sides. It's very much in the middle. But I just didn't have a lot of the floss colors. I did manage to find one that I can stitch with. So we'll just kind of get started on it, and then I'll have to go to the store and buy some more floss colors. So anyhow, and she has a little explanation with all the pictures about what inspired the picture. To this day, Paula remembers childhood visits to her grandparents' house. She enjoyed walking in her grandmother's yard, which was bordered by barbed wire and old wooden fence posts, because she could always find irises blooming in springtime. And we had irises where I grew up. Irises can grow anywhere, including southern Utah. This is a design that I remember seeing a lot once upon a time in stores as a stitched, back when there were more cross-stitch stores. This is one that you would see cross-stitched and finished, and the individual pattern to buy more so than the actual book through a mother size. Again, I'm just zooming in so that you can see some of the beautiful details in her designs. This one is Sonnets of Love, and you have a little book of poetry. I think it's probably something from the Sonnets of the Portuguese. It says Sonnets of the Portuguese, and I knew that felt wrong. It's Sonnets from the Portuguese, Elizabeth Barrett Browning's book, but here they wrote Sonnets of the Portuguese. I'm pretty sure it's Sonnets from the Portuguese. That's a book that my mother had a children's book actually that had one of her sonnets, and I memorized it. It's a lovely sonnet. And when I went to college, I read Robert Browning, who I liked even better, but who would not really, his poetry doesn't go along with Paula Vaughan cross stitches as well. You'd have to do a different style for that. This is beautiful. This one is Rosy Repose. This is one I might have an individual pattern for. And it's hard not to pick to do this design with its green rocking chair and so many flowers. Two different rocking chairs, including one that came from my grandmother's house. This one is the embroiderer, and you can see there's a phrase or saying there that the embroiderer has been stitching. Lots of lovely little details, right down to shadows around everything. And you can see in a Paula Vaughan picture the importance of back stitching. She has plenty of areas with no back stitching, but where there is back stitching, it serves a purpose. This is called Thoughts of Spring. This is one I had considered doing. I considered doing all of them, but this is one of the ones I considered more than the others. Look at the lovely quilts and dresses and furniture, the wallpaper, the curtains, the old sewing machine, just the flowers that you can see through the window. Beautiful, beautiful pattern to stitch. Might take a while. So I think that's another reason that I didn't pick that one. This one is based or inspired by Little Women. I love that it includes the book with the picture of Marmee and her four girls, and you can see that it says Little Women in it. Great memories of reading that growing up, and my college roommate and I used to talk about our favorite characters, and a version of Little Women came out while we were in college. When I was looking for the pattern to find the floss colors, I got distracted by this one and thought that there's something that doesn't feel right about this. I don't remember there being a gate until I looked and found the other one, and I didn't remember there being a hat. I knew I had picked one that looked more rustic and not quite so refined. But you might like this one better for those very details. Yeah, they're very nice. You could do both. They would be pretty to hang out next to each other, or for two people to own them, like sisters or friends who grew up on either side of the fence. Um, Simply sunflowers. Some of you might remember that in 1998, sunflowers were so popular. They were everywhere in decorating. So this was a very popular design at the time. And it has taken the time that has transpired for me to be able to appreciate it more. I think it's very pretty. I love it. Sunflowers are beautiful. It helps if you don't see them in decorating all the time, everywhere, with every cute saying. Then you can appreciate the bucket, the wooden bucket, the faucet, just all the little details of the design. This one is called Friendship Quilts. I adore it, as I adore any design with a porch swing. Sometimes it's the detail that's just this much off of what you experienced or grew up that makes you not pick something like the shed or the porch. It's beautiful, and I'm sure that's the way things were where some people grew up, but not where I grew up. They were a little different. And so, even though it's really cute, it was enough for me to not pick it. I had put sticky notes in here for the patterns I most wanted to stitch, and this one was supposed to be for me. And I just was not in the mood to cross stitch a Christmas design. You see the wallpaper? Just the cute quilt design, all of the emblems of Christmas, but especially the scene in the background. It's really lovely, and I do want to stitch it. I just am not going to stitch it right now. This is another one that used to see stitched a lot because of cross-stitching something for someone for their wedding or to remember your wedding was something people would do. This one's really nice because of the scripture at the bottom from the book of Ruth. For whither thou goest, I will go, and where thou lodgest, I will lodge, which was what Ruth said to her mother-in-law after her husband had died. And the mother-in-law was left without a husband and without children. Her daughter-in-laws, who wanted to go with her, they both wanted to stay with her, but only the one went back to Israel with her, and that was Ruth. This, now I'm taking off all these sticky notes, which say who I had wanted to stitch them for. But that's okay. It's been many years. Some of the people that I would stitch things for have said that they're trying to declutter their lives. So I don't know. I have made cross-stitch designs for this person. So this one's lovely, and I think I just thought she would love the pretty flowers and the beautiful hat. And this is Midsummer Roses. And they are really pretty roses. I think the hat is as much to want to stitch as the roses, though. I really like that. Okay, this one is called Summer Welcome. I really liked this, especially for the hanging plants. The details are so awesome. I love the cushion on the chair, the two different quilts. It's sunflowers growing in this one. I love them growing up along the side. This one's called Morning Star, and it has, that's from this scripture. It's at the bottom of the picture. To me, the main attraction here obviously is the quilt and then the winter scene in the background. I do like the chest, the basin, and the window. I like the whole thing. Oh look, I was gonna stitch so many of these. This was gonna be for my dear friend, and I do really like it. Um, I don't know if this is the one that she would want though. Beautiful lamp, beautiful picture and curtains, and very nice scripture sentiments. Scissors, lovely. This one's called the porch swing. A lot of white here, but it's still very pretty. So you can see there's a lot of similarity between the designs, so that can make it kind of hard to pick because they have a similar feel to them. This one's cute. Friendship bouquet. I like the door on the porch as much as I like anything. It can come down to the little things though. Like, do I like that quilt as much as a different quilt? Do I like the roses as well as I like the sunflowers or the irises? And um, deciding that way. This was one I really liked. It's in the garret, and this is another Little Women inspired design. The 4 dresses for the 4 girls. Yeah. So that one's lovely. This was definitely one of my favorites that I had to eliminate when I was deciding what to stitch. Job's Tears, which is the name of the quilt pattern in the picture. Obviously, it's the old-fashioned sewing machine. Um, the quilt is nice, but it's the sewing machine. That's the appeal there. Spring Remembered is the gate that you saw earlier with the irises and the hat, with a fancier hat, a basket, and a beautiful quilt. So it's a much fancier pattern, a much bigger undertaking. It's really pretty. But there was something about having a flower on top of a barbed wire quilt that I just thought, but you wouldn't put your quilt over a barbed wire. But you might put it in a rocking chair next to the barbed wire. So I did strongly consider this one. Plus, I love Grandmother's Flower Garden. And this one is called Flower Garden because of the quilt, more so than the flower garden. And it really is lovely. I love the wicker chair, rocking chair. Sorry for the loud boom every time my book hits the table. Here we have Garden Party, and the appeal here is just how floral and beautiful it is. It's just lovely. And that's the last one. So then they have all of your charts, which are basically broken up over like 4 pages, with a couple of exceptions. The patterns, the smaller pattern pictures are just take a couple of pages. There's nothing that's just on one page. They give you your floss colors, and I think I showed you how they suggest, they tell you how big the design is. Remember to add about 6 inches to your width and your length. That gives you 3 inches, which should be enough for turning under on the back if you're going to frame it. If you're going to do something else with it, I don't know. Still give yourself enough, 4 inches. If you're just going to sew it onto a pillow or something. In the back, they have some general instructions for cross stitching and stitch diagrams. So you can take it to a quilt store and frame it. So we're going to go ahead and start the pattern. This is linen. This is MCG Textiles. The color is Oyster. It's a very whitish color. It's really pretty. It needs to be ironed. It likely will fray really easy. 32 counts. It's soft. It's beautiful. This is what it looks like. Very pretty. You're going to probably stitch over 2 threads with 2 strands of floss. That's what I'll do. And